Okay, we'll call our meeting to order. Special committee meeting of the whole. One item on our agenda tonight is to discuss where we're at with our solid waste plan. As you all know, we've been working hard at trying to get something in place in a relatively short period of time. I will tell you, after we have a presentation from our county executive, we had several proposals. I say several, four proposals come back from our RFP from Gotta Do Contracting. This is in regards to the post-closure also. And County Waste and Recycling and O'Brien and Gear. So I will ask you to entertain the idea of going into an executive session so we can specifically discuss those proposals and possible further negotiations. And I would cite that this would be for the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person, corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person. That's why we'll be going into the executive session. And I also just listed the folks that sent the RFPs back. But at this time, I'd ask our county executive, and we also have in attendance Sean, our county treasurer, Andy, Paul. We've met today since 2 o'clock we've been meeting. And if you want to, along with Terry, if you want to go over a lot of our discussions and where we're at, Matt.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you guys being here. This is obviously a big issue for us, and one that we're going to have to act in a timely manner. We don't have the luxury of taking another 3 months to discuss this and go back and forth. So we've been working pretty hard, going back from even before I took office and we took office. The first step in the process, as many people know, was waste disposal, which I think we did a good job with a intermunicipal agreement with Fulton County. The second step was evaluating our options as it relates to the post-closure management, as well as the operation of the facilities, the transfer stations. In order to evaluate all the options, we had our Public Works Commissioner prepare a breakdown of what he thinks it would take to run the transfer stations alone, as well as run the transfer stations and do the post-closure work. One thing that came up in our meetings with Otsego County was the option of, or the looking into Montgomery County doing post-closure work for all 3 counties. That also went out we also went out for an RFP on that and have since got the responses. In regard to the transfer facilities, like I said, our commissioner has worked up the numbers, the flow charts, the organizational charts on what it would take to do those facilities in-house. We met at length today with our chairman of the
General Services,
as well as the chairman of the board. This is something where, as we discuss the powers and authorities under the new charter, the legislature is really the policy-making body. And this is really a big decision, and one of the first big decisions for the new legislature. I feel it is my job to make sure we're giving you all the options. And I think we've done a good job of doing that so far. Are we at the point where we have all the data that's finished? No. As Chairman stated, we're still negotiating as it relates to the responses to the RFPs. The goal, and I think the goal of the chairman as well as and I would think the legislative body, is that we do not want to see the tipping fees go up. If anything, we would like to see them go down. So with that in mind, we've prepared the whole framework in which the legislature can make a decision. We have the issue of, where there's a lot of concern, is Do we utilize the private sector, or do we utilize our public employees, or is it a combination of both? Even in our RFP to run the transfer stations, it utilizes county employees at the weigh stations as well as providing administrative work. So I don't see it as a necessarily completely private operation. I believe it would be a partnership. Now, with that said, there are pros. What we've seen, although the numbers aren't final, there are pros and cons to both sides. There is no clear, easy decision here. This is something that we're really going to have to focus on and work through over the next 2 weeks. When you look at the private side, some of the pros, you have what could be more clear picture of your financial future and what the costs are going to be in the coming years. However, financially, it might cost more. On the public side, you have more control over what goes on at both the transfer stations and in the post-closure management process, which we have to manage these landfills for a certain amount of years, and that's going to happen no matter what we do. Also, we feel that we could possibly have more control over the tipping fee if we did it ourselves. However, over the years, once we create a public entity, we're in charge of it and we're taking ownership. And could that mean more liability? Could that mean more risk? Possibly. We are a self-insured county. One of the issues that has come up and has been brought up by our personnel director is what happens if things don't go as planned. We have accidents or issues like that. There is some concern there that there is additional risk on the public side. So there's ups and downs and pros and cons to both sides, and this is not an easy decision by any stretch of the imagination. But without going into specifics regarding the negotiations, that's really where we are right now. As far as a time frame, like I said, we've had lengthy meetings today. We wanted to make sure this was as open and public of a discussion as humanly possible. That's why we're here tonight. I'd be happy to entertain questions from the legislature that aren't related to specific negotiations that I would feel would be best handled in an executive session. But moving forward, that's really where we are. We have these various options, and the legislature is being informed and kept up to speed. And we are going to have to make a decision here at our either a special meeting or the full board meeting at the end of the month. We cannot afford to let this decision go past the end of this month, because if we do go public, we're going to have to hire and create this department, and having a month to do that is going to be a challenge, to say the least. And as well on the private side, you can't give a private sector company 1 week to get an operation up and running. So that's really where we are as far as an overview, and I'd be happy to take any questions at this point moving forward.
Matt, I know we had discussed today also, I don't want to compare this to our former nursing home, but for financial purposes, I would compare it in a sense that, and we talked to the treasurer about this, our nursing home, if you remember, was an enterprise fund. The nursing home was supposed to sustain itself in regards to the money that came in paid for the facility without bearing any more of the burden to the taxpayer, because X amount of people would stay in the facility, and that worked for quite a while, I think, and then it came a point where we were subsidizing it at the county level of about, I think it ended up $2.7 million the last year we were in it. So the question became for me today, would this be an enterprise fund? Is this something that would sustain itself, because the tipping fees, if need be, could rise to offset the cost of doing business? That was one thing. One of the other things that we talked about was under if we're public, one of the pros and cons. One of the cons was, and you brought the employees on board and you have this self-funded medical insurance that we have. Right now, there's a stop loss, I believe it's $200,000. So for any catastrophic illness with any of our employees, we foot the bill on the first $200,000. Those types of things aren't, and I don't know how you build those into a long-range plan to just because they're unforeseen and you don't know what they are. But that was a couple of the
Well,
main.
and that goes back to, I think, what I said, you know, there's, on the public side, there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
One of the things that has been a concern, and I think rightly so, is what kind of potential costs are we opening ourselves up for? And that was one. But at the same time, there's also, you know, if it is an efficient operation that runs well, then this could be a good thing for the county. And that's something that we've also expressed in our meetings today. And again, it's, I was sitting in the meeting today and I said, you know, we're gonna have to make a decision on that, but I personally don't even know exactly where I stand because I think we're still putting together the picture. And that will, we're going to Otsego County on Thursday to talk a little bit more about the post-closure management. Because again, like I said, they're looking at Montgomery County possibly doing post-closure management for all 3 counties. And we should have a much clearer picture by Friday, but this is such a fluid situation. As I said, we're in negotiations, we're working with other counties, so we're still working through the process, but I thought it was important to, number one, update the legislature, but also be available to the public to answer questions about where we are, and we'll be more than happy to do that.
I also, as I said earlier, we're going to entertain, I hope, a motion to go into executive session in a bit, but I anticipate that's going to be a lengthy executive session when we get in. So I would also, you know, at first I want to give the legislature any opportunity here to ask questions, but also to the media. I don't know that you're going to hang out all night for us. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask us, I would also offer that up too, but first the legislature. Mark?
I'm not sure if this is an executive question, but I know you're also worried about the employees that are covered right now. How many is there, and is it something that is being discussed? Would it be part of?
Talking about current MOSA employees?
Correct.
17?
Yes.
17?
Yes.
17,
I
okay.
think it's
Yes.
17.
And that certainly has been a concern of mine,
Right.
as I know the legislature.
Yes.
The way the current structure is, and we were trying to actually figure out some of the details, which were the benefit package towards the end when MOSA ends, how that would affect employees transferring over, but also should the legislature decide to entertain a public-private partnership, what could we do to try to ensure that the employees at least were looked at on the private side. And I can feel confident in saying that, number one, the county will do everything they can to give most employees, should we go private, options when it comes to the county. But also, we're confident in the folks that we're dealing with on the private side that former most employees would be given the opportunity to interview for jobs in the private sector. If we go that route, we don't know that that's the way it's going to go yet, and if anybody says that they do know that we're going that way, it's not true. Because I tell you, I'm still trying, I think my goal here was to make sure the legislature has all the information possible to make a good decision. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not letting any one opinion drive my work. And that is, but I do also have a concern for the folks that are working at MOSA. Very much so.
Thank you.
Joey?
Let me talk a little bit. No, you're out there.
No, Joe. We're gonna entertain questions from the legislature and then the media, and afterwards, if there's members, I don't have a problem of fielding questions from the public as long as it's not, you know, in regards to the negotiations. But I really want the legislature to have their opportunity.
When you talked a little bit, it seemed like your major concern was about catastrophic injury or something that would come up and affect us as far as insurance or liability goes. It looks like doing it with local employees, it would be less expensive. Does that still come out that way, or it hasn't come out that way?
Yes, I mean, obviously, when you're dealing with a public entity versus a private entity, the public, we're doing it at cost. This isn't a moneymaker. When legally, we can't make money, but, yeah, you're gonna have, that's one of the benefits of doing it on the public side. My concern is, on the public side, we can lay out what it's gonna cost us. We can lay out all our expenses. It's the unknowns that we can't prepare for. And that is where the concern is on my part, and we're doing our best to nail down those specifics so you have a good idea of what to expect should we go that way.
And have you seen the bids come in, or you have seen the bids for public, or that?
For private?
Private, yes.
Yes, we have all our bids in for both the post-closure and operation of the facilities. We're currently negotiating those, and that's what we're looking to address in the executive session.
Okay, thank you.
And on the public side, as he said earlier, the commissioner has drafted up, but certainly not in its final form, some numbers that, we'll discuss when we get final. I don't want to discuss something that we don't have in its final form yet.
It's something where we can give the legislators a little bit of an idea, but we're still trying to hone in on what exactly it's going to look like.
I think Joe hit it. In appearance, it might look as though we could say, but there's the unknowns that one of them we discussed earlier was for instance with health insurance. You can never tell what that number is going to be. Could be. So do you take the risk, a little more risk that way, or do you privatize it? Know the number you're dealing with ahead of time, but know that that's what it is and that's where it ends. I mean, that's some of the flip of the coin that we have to discuss. And anyone else from the legislature have any questions? All right, from the media, anybody from the media have any questions?
Is there a possibility you guys might take action tonight after this executive session?
Absolutely not.
No.
There will be no action taken. It's a committee of the whole meeting, so we can't take action, or we would have had to have it on the agenda. So there will be no action taken by this body other than to be informed and discuss. So there will be no, I would anticipate that any action to be taken in the form of a resolution from this legislature would happen at either a special meeting with it on the agenda or at the full board meeting in March, which is the 25th. That's the goal.
Yeah, and really, tonight's meeting was, we knew we were going to get back our responses to the RFPs for the operation of the transfer facility, so we wanted to make sure we had a chance to update the legislature and give as much to the public as we could, because this is going to be something that's timely and it's going to change week to week over the next month. So hopefully we can get to the point next week where we're really at the point where we're almost ready to make a decision.
I had a question for you, Matt. You say you're not really even sure yourself right now which way you want to go. What will sway your opinion?
When we have the final information, when both the public and private side, when all that information is concrete and we know exactly what it is. Right now, there's still, on both sides, we've made some suggestions to Paul today. We've also are negotiating on the private side. So, and it is such a close issue that I think I want to reserve judgment until all the information is there. We're getting there, but we're not there yet.
Any other questions from the media?
You said there were 4 proposals for the RFP?
Yeah, actually, the company of Gotta Do Contracting, they gave us the solid waste proposal, what will we call it, the transfer station proposal, and they also bid on the post-closure. County Waste and Recycling bid on
Just the transfer.
just the transfer station, and O'Brien bid on just the post-closure. So there were 3 companies, but 4 bids, 2 and 2. 2 on the post-closure and 2 on the transfer stations. 1 bidding on both. Anything else from the media? If not, before we go to executive session, I know there's some folks that joined us tonight. We typically wouldn't do this at a committee meeting, but I know it's near and dear to your heart, and I saw a hand go up earlier, and we'll be happy to answer what we can answer, if you have any questions.
Yeah, I just had a question regarding to when you folks taking over the existing most employees now, would they have preference for the jobs that would be opening?
Now, you're referring to in both ways?
Yes.
Both public and private?
Yes.
While we certainly haven't entered into a contractual situation with any of these companies,
Right.
I believe there is a feeling that they would be open to interviewing the employees. Now, whether we can't hold them to the fire and say, yes, you have to hire these people, but I think they're certainly not going to turn their back on most employees. And if we did go to the public side, one of the things we talked about as a benefit was the fact that we have folks who are in the job, know exactly what to do, and that would certainly be the ideal situation, to have most employees as possible.
Yeah, it would make it easier for
Yeah.
your startup.
Transition,
absolutely.
yeah. Not just the startup, the transition, the startup, and the long-term effects of why, not have the people that've been doing it so long that know it best. Why not have them in those
Yeah,
seats?
So I guess it could be best summed up as definitely yes on the public side, but we're even concerned about that on the private side. It's obviously we don't have as much control there, but we want to work with those who want to be good stewards of the folks in this county. So hopefully that'll be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Anyone else? Supervisor Ed Bishop.
Just from our township, today we have our own transfer station, which I assume will stay our own transfer station. We're contracted with County Waste, who haul it, but they haul it to Mosa and we get billed by Mosa for the tips. So my question is, it seems to me like that would be double dipping if that were to continue. If County Waste had to take it to either a privatized or a public station and then turn around and haul it to Johnstown, why couldn't it just come from our transfer station directly to Johnstown? I wonder if that's possible or not.
It would violate, wouldn't it violate the agreement that we would have with Fulton County?
Yeah, I would have to double check to be absolutely sure on that, but yes, I believe that the agreement is that from our transfer station to Mud Road. Now, I will say this, we're focusing on the immediate future, but we've also had some talks about down the line about things exactly what you're talking about. How can we make this whole situation more efficient, and how can we maybe work with all the municipalities in the county, pool our resources, and through that volume get a better deal for our local municipalities.
Supervisor, let me understand it. You actually have, when you said you have a transfer station, you're not talking about rent, you're talking about within the township.
Yes.
You have the ability to have people come bring their trash.
That's correct.
And then they empty that, County Waste comes in, grabs that trash, takes it to MOSA.
Yes.
So you have a private contract with County Waste, but you don't pick it up, do you?
When you say
You don't have a
No,
garbage,
no,
they can
they
just
have
come
to
and take it.
yeah, the township have a choice. Of course, they can contract with
Privately.
or they can pay the town, I think it's $150, $175 a year, and they are allowed to come twice a week to dump it down there. And we have, paper, cardboard, and recyclable and garbage.
Neat. Okay. You folks all set? Duke, you come in a little bit. You have
Yeah, I
any-
got stuck behind somebody going 75.
We're going to entertain a motion to go into executive session shortly, but before I did that, I wanted to give the media, folks from most of the public and legislators an opportunity to, Matt just gave a bit of an overview and a presentation, but if you had any questions.
Almost it.
Okay.
Well, and one of the things I'd just like to emphasize for not only the folks here, but the folks in Montgomery County, especially local municipalities, our goal here and what we're going to do is come that first day, post-MOSA, we will be operating and we will be at the tipping fee we were at or lower. That's the goal. And I know there's a lot of concern out there from municipalities about what's going to happen moving forward, but we want to ensure not only a smooth transition from one government to the other, but one public entity to the post-MOSA world that we're all living in now. So If we could just emphasize that, you know, the municipalities can be assured that we're on top of this, and this will be taken care of, hopefully by the end of the month, and we'll see a smooth transition regardless of what it looks like on the other side.
Okay? With that being said, I would offer up a motion to go into executive session to discuss the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. And specifically, as I said earlier, it's to discuss the request for proposals that did come back from Gotta Do Contracting LLC, County Waste and Recycling Services Incorporated, and O'Brien and Gear. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor to go into executive session?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstain? We are now in executive session. I would ask our county executive, Andy, Sean,